Okay guys, so the Virgin Galactic Q2 2021 date has been announced. So it's going to happen on Thursday, August the 5th, 2021. So it's going to be live webcasted. So what I'm going to do is leave the actual link in the description box down below. So be sure to save this video and bookmark it, and then we can check out the actual live stream on August the 5th, 2021 together. Okay, so in today's video, what I'm going to talk about is actually some of the things that is going to make the actual earnings announcement exciting, because normally Virgin Galactic's earnings are quite uneventful and it doesn't really go well because we're not making money at the moment. We've still got a long way before profitability. So I'm just going to go through 7 points that I think are going to make this earnings interesting and something that investors want to hear about. So let's jump straight into it. And before I do that, I'll be grateful if you can smash that like button and subscribe for future updates. Okay, let's start with the first point. So the first point is the actual flight test analysis for Sir Richard Branson's test flight. That's what we want to hear about. One of the things that they stressed about was actual customer experience, and that was what Richard Branson was actually in control of. So he actually mentioned in an interview that there was lots of little things about the whole customer experience that he would like to change, and I'd like to hear a bit more details about what kind of little things did he not like about the experience and how he'd like to change it, because I think that will be important for us as investors, knowing what customers are going to experience in the future. The second thing was the microgravity research side of things. We ended up doing some research on this test flight, so I want to find out a bit more information about what sort of things we actually researched and how it went and what we learnt from the research. And the reason for that is because microgravity research is actually a big part of Virgin Galactic's revenue stream. Because if you have a look here, microgravity research and professional astronaut training, the actual revenue per ticket, so it's $500,000 per seat, and that's actually double of what a customer passenger experience costs, which is $250,000 per seat. So microgravity research, very important. Let's hear about what exactly we researched in the most recent test flight. So that's the first thing. So flight analysis was number one. Number two, I want to know a bit more about the flight schedule update. So if we have a look here, this is the flight test program. And as you know, in the second flight, we did a 2-pilot and full cabin of mission specialists. But one thing we also did is we also included the private astronaut experience, and we included Sir Richard Branson, which means that we actually covered the third flight objectives of this flight test program. So I'd love to hear an update in terms of the flight test program, telling us what we are going to expect from the third test flight if we are going to actually have one, and then in terms of the fourth test flight, when that is potentially going to happen. And I'd like to hear a timeline as well. How soon do we expect to complete this flight test program? We know previously they mentioned that the third flight is likely to happen in summer and the fourth flight likely before 2022 ends. So are we still on schedule for that? So that's the second thing, is the flight schedule update. So what's the third thing now? So the third thing is that the actual stock offering, which was announced recently, which actually caused the stock to tank a little bit. Well, not a little bit, actually quite a lot. Okay, so if we have a look here, this was their Q1 2021 earnings report, and you can see that in Q1 of 2021, we ended up with a capital cash equivalent of $620 million, and that was compared to around $670 million the quarter before. So we used about $50 million in one quarter. So if we take it to the next quarter, and imagine we used another $50 million in this quarter, then we'd probably have it around $570 million just from what we have already. And as you know, we just announced a $500 million stock offering. So let's imagine we actually are able to generate $500 million from this stock offering. Now $500 million from the stock offering plus the $570 million from the current cash equivalents results in more than $1 billion of capital. That's a very, very strong balance sheet. But the real question is, what are we going to do with this balance sheet? How are we going to spend it? Please give us details on exactly what we are going to spend this money on. I know they briefly mentioned about fleet expansion. I'm really hoping to hear more about that. This really isn't much detail. So tell us about the VSS Imagine. When are we going to expect the actual ground testing and the flight testing? I'd love to hear about that. And also, you mentioned about scaling. Scaling is very important for Virgin Galactic, and that $1 billion is really going to help us scale. But tell us more information. So how many spaceships are we going to build? How many rocket motors are we going to build? How many motherships are we going to build? And over what sort of time period are we going to build these spaceships, rocket motors and motherships in order to expand the fleet and in order to allow us to generate revenue? So that's number 3. That's the stock offering and how are we going to spend the money. So number 4 is revenue. Now, if we go to page 10 of this earnings report, you can see that the first full revenue flight will generate $2 million. But what's important is that it's actually a microgravity research and professional astronaut training flight. It's not going to be a passenger customer experience flight. It's going to be a research flight. Now, what we'd like to know is what sort of research are we going to do on this flight, because that will be quite important. And the second thing is, when should we expect to have this flight? Because we'd love to know when the revenue is going to start coming in. Now, obviously, it's very difficult to say exactly when revenue is going to come in, but it's very important for us to have an idea and to know that you as a Virgin Galactic team are ambitious and goal orientated. Even if you don't actually hit those targets, it's important to know that you've got those goals and you've got something to aim for in terms of a timeline. Number 5 is quite similar. So number 5, instead of revenue, we're thinking about profitability. Now, again, this is very difficult to say because we're not even generating any revenue at the moment, but it'll be very important for us to, again, know that you're thinking of an actual date as to when you think profitability will happen. And the reason for that is because, again, we want to know that you're goal orientated, ambitious, and even if you're off by miles, we'd love to hear a actual timeline as to when you think profitability will happen, whether that's in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Let us know. As investors, I think we deserve to know what your thoughts are, and I'm sure you've definitely got some thoughts on that. Okay, so that's number 4 and 5 are revenue and profitability. Moving on to the last 2, so number 6. Now, we know that the ticket sales are reopening soon, because if we have a look here, plan to reopen ticket sales around the Sir Richard Branson flight. And as we know, we've just completed the Sir Richard Branson test flight. So we are likely to hear about reopening of ticket sales on Q2 of 2021, which is in 3 weeks' time. Now, what we'd like to know is how many tickets are we planning to sell, because we've already got 600 future reservations. So how many more tickets are we planning to sell? 400, 600? Let us know. And also, what price are you planning to sell it at? Because that's very important in order for us to know how much money we are likely to generate in terms of revenue. So that's number 6. It's the reopening of ticket sales. How many tickets and what price? Now, the final point is a bit ambitious. It's a bit further down the line, but I think it's important to, in the earnings report, cover what is going to happen in the future, no matter how far away it is, and that is on hypersonic travel. I'd love to hear a brief update on hypersonic travel progress, and again, just a rough timeline. Is it 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? Just let us know so that we as investors are well informed. Now, we know that the last time we heard anything, it was very early stage, so it was just a memorandum of understanding which was signed with Rolls-Royce. But we'd love to hear details about how that's progressed. Have you made any progress with Rolls-Royce? Any more discussions? How is the Mach 3 aircraft design going? Are there any plans to start production soon? We've got about $1 billion, so are we going to allocate a small portion of that $1 billion to the actual hypersonic travel part of Virgin Galactic, or are we just going to focus on fleet expansion for the actual space tourism side of things for now, and then generate enough money in order to focus on the hypersonic travel later on? Just let us know some details on what the plans are. So that was the final point. So point 7 is a brief update on hypersonic travel progress. So in conclusion, we just want details on these things. Comment down below anything that you think I've missed out that should be addressed in the next earnings call. Remember to save this video to your bookmarks so that we can watch the live stream on the 5th of August 2021. I'll leave the link in the description box down below. Smash that like button, subscribe for future updates. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.